Is it on one?
Good afternoon and welcome. I've just been given the nod. We are live on LinkedIn and StreamYard, so really excited for today. A little bit of housekeeping, I guess, before we start. We have some comments section for everybody that's just joining us. Please feel free to put comments within there. Ask questions, kind of do whatever you kind of want within there. We have some amazing people monitoring that chat function. So I've got James from the bit group will be in there. He'll be asking and answering questions reference kind of bit specific or training specific elements. And I've got Anise and Daniela from the ISACA team as well, who are also going to be monitoring those comments within there. So as we see the questions kind of in there, please feel to ask them. There are going to be a little bit of time at the end of this webinar where we've got kind of allocated Q&A session. So if we get some really cool questions, some really exciting questions, I'm hoping that they got put on the big screen and potentially we can present them to some of the panel members as well. So a little bit of housekeeping for us. We're here for around 45 minutes today, okay? So I'm going to keep you all for around 45 minutes. I say around because that means I can go a little bit less and a little bit over depending within that space. And why are we here? Well, today we're going to be talking about information cybersecurity for MOD service leavers and veterans, right? Why? Well, because this is an amazing journey, okay? In this digital world that we live in, we're going to be looking at some of these amazing key topics. We're going to look at transitioning from the military into civilian roles. We're going to look at some of those skills required, maybe technical, maybe non-technical. We're going to look at career support. We're going to give you some amazing signposting opportunities for information and guidance because, you know, I'm very mindful, ex-service member myself. We sometimes get kind of enclosed our own little environment, and what happens on the outside, we might tend not to see. So we're going to give some really good support, advice, and guidance there. And we're going to look at some of the real people. We're going to look at the panel members and how they've achieved it. And the different routes and the different pathways that they've gone to manage to do that. I'm Frankie, I'm your host for today. I'm the CEO of Bit Training. It's slightly different for me today because normally I'm on the other side. Normally I'm sat where the panel members are and the questions are being directed to me. So it's pretty cool and I'm excited today because guess what? I get to ask the questions and they get to kind of give me some really cool answers within there. I am joined with an amazing panel. Today I've got Colin Grimes from Tech Vets, we've got Faisal Malik from ISACA, and we've got Tom Holloway from 7 Elements. I'm going to ask you, team, just to introduce yourself, if you can, just for a couple of minutes. So, Colin, I'm going to start with you only because you're at the top of my screen there.
Hi there, thanks, Frankie, and thanks for the invite today. It's a fab thing to be part of. So I'm Colin. I'm the operations manager for Tech Vets. We exist as that sort of bridge between the military families and now we've just ventured into helping dependents into careers in tech and cyber. So we're a program within the Forces Employment Charity, the oldest and largest charity dealing with employment for ex-military. Probably something that a lot of people haven't heard of. If you've gone through CTP, it gets mentioned. Used to be called RFEA and it was very quiet. We've got better in the last couple of years, sort of really trumpeting about what we do. We're all about getting people into work. We're all about breaking down barriers and helping you get that new career.
Colin, absolute pleasure to have you. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm going to go to my bottom left of my screen now. Tom, how are you? All the way from Geneva Airport, right?
Yeah, and you're going to get the whole bunch of tannoy announcements as we go along, Frankie. Thanks for having me along. So by way of introduction, Tom Holloway, I head up 7 Elements, which is a small cybersecurity business, which is effectively the cybersecurity division inside RedCentric. For those of you in the military, you'll have never heard of RedCentric. It's a UK managed service provider working closely with NHS. We have a lot of healthcare clients, but equally a lot of UK. We're very UK specific, providing network connectivity, cybersecurity, compute with colo and other bits and pieces. So how did I end up doing this? It's quite a long story. I began life as a tank commander an awfully long time ago with the King's Royal Hussars. I ended up running the Army's media and communications team. I suppose I got into resilience through crisis communications, and I was doing that with an IT company and picked it up as I went along. And I left the Army 7.5 years ago now. And, you know, there's not a day I don't think, well, I think I've made the right decision. So everyone listening to this call, you know, pin your ears back. You know, there's loads to learn. there's nothing as daft as a silly question. You know, that everyone's gone down the path you're about to go down. There's tons of experience there. Lean into it and dig it out. That's it from me before the next tannoy kicks in.
Tom, amazing. Thank you very much. And last but not least, my good friend and colleague, Faisal Malik, all the way from Isaka. How are you doing, buddy?
Very, very well, Frankie. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to everyone who's joining the call today as well. So as Frankie says, my name is Faisal Malik. I am the Europe, Middle East and Africa Sales Director for ISACA. For those of you who do not know, ISACA is a global not-for-profit membership body. We've been around in the industry now for over 50 years and have a membership of over 170,000 professionals around the world. We specialize in training and certification in the field of cybersecurity, audit and governance, risk and compliance. I'm personally really excited to be part of this panel and part of this discussion today. I really believe that there's so much opportunity out there for all profiles of different levels of experience and knowledge. And I'm really excited to be presenting some ideas and conversation for you today. So thanks for being part of this conversation.
Faisal, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you on a panel. Thanks very much, buddy. And yes, what an amazing team we have. So, let's go. Let's kind of look at some questions and really kind of delve into kind of real world experiences and some kind of the responses from the panel here. So I'm going to come to you first, Tom, if that's okay. And we could talk about key skills, okay, and we talk about those experiences that everyone within the MOD has, and we nurture over time. How do we leverage them in the world of cybersecurity? How do I apply myself? What do I need? How do I do it? That's the question everybody keeps asking me.
I think the key thing is don't get hung up necessarily on the skills, because your average service leaver has a huge offering that they don't actually realize when they stack up against their civvy street sort of oppo. Fundamentally, what you've got are soft skills, long and large. It's not necessarily the fact. I mean, there's only a few, I guess, and Frankie, you're possibly one of those who served in a technical role in something like the Royal Signals, where actually that skill set will be really useful and get you a job straight away in any telco across the country, any cybersecurity role, whatever. But for your average person, actually, it's the ability to see the bigger picture, to understand how you fit into something, and you're equally comfortable talking, on the shop floor with the boys and girls getting the job done, but equally articulating your case to senior leadership. What are you trying to achieve? What are the key snags that you're running up against? And what do you need to fix it? And it's having that sort of, the classics of three-columned approach, so what? What are you trying to achieve? How do you go about it? And that sort of thinking beyond your strict remit in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and think wider as to what resources could you lean into. So a couple of things I was scratching down here in the margins. Pragmatic. You don't just run up against a problem and stop. You kind of flow around it and work out how you can bypass this blockage. Do you get in somebody with a bigger dad who can make a decision that helps you get your way, or do you take a totally different approach and go around it? And any military career, you'll have the experience that'll enable you to do that. People in the services are generally really quick learners. So, there's so much online and in-person training, get amongst some of that, do some research online. It's all there. And ISACA and all the rest of it, and many other providers, have a really good portfolio of offerings. Work out what fits your needs, where you want to go, do your research and go for it. Use those CTP points and the budget available there and make the most of it. Don't do any Mickey Mouse courses because all your mates are doing it. Do something that works for you and your future. And I guess my final point here is, driven and adaptable. You made great way in the services, for a period of time. Everyone leaves the services in the end, and you're going to make a stunning second career, putting those skills that you learned or polished in the military to great effect. And sorry, I did say it was my last point, but an eye for detail, and it's not just sort of bullshit room inspection stuff. But if something's wrong, military people tend to call it out, and rather than walk by and let it be. And that serves you well in Civvy Street because people respect you for giving a toss. Am I allowed to say that? But taking an interest in the wider sort of situation. And that's probably enough from me, Frankie. If that helps.
No, and I think that's really, really key. And I think Tom, what you've mentioned there is we're not just talking about technical. We kind of get this persona. To work in the technical arena, I have to have technical certs. I have to have technical qualifications. Yes, there is a place for them, and yes, that experience within technical subjects is there. But actually, the soft skills, the real skills, the drive, the passion, the motivation, the things that we, as armed forces veterans, personnel, soldiers, Air Force, Navy, etc., we take for granted because we just do them, right? We just do them as part of our roles and our jobs. Well, actually, when you move that into the commercial world, not many of those commercial style roles or individuals have as them is an abundance.
Absolutely. And when you're working on your CVs, pull evidence out for the things you've done and speak to loads of people. Socialize your CV. There's nothing wrong with doing that at all. And get ideas. And you'll get to a point where it's as good as it's ever going to be. Maybe never. But, make sure you've got evidence for stuff. So if you said led teams of such and such a size, lay down what it was that you were delivering and achieving, because that all adds to the story. And a lot of employers out there, frankly, are really keen to get military in because they recognize the value, the work ethic, the attention to detail, the going the extra mile approach. Sorry, I've got kids and all sorts screaming around here.
Brilliant. So we talked about those kind of the how we move into those different roles from a military perspective. Now, Fires, I want to come to you because yes, we need those soft skills, but we're also talking about technical skills and technical certs. So what do we do? What technical certs are there? Because I think there's a huge assumption that when we're in this world, in this arena, everybody knows about everything, don't they? We all know about all of the training providers and all the vendors and all the different types of certs out there. But reality is, I think sometimes we take for granted what people do know and don't know. So what type of roles do we have? What certs available? What are we looking at in pursuing those kind of cyber careers?
Yeah, absolutely, Frankie. Yeah, Tom's touched on some really salient points there, actually, when it comes to sort of learning pathways and there being an availability of programs for every profile, in industry as well, right? So I totally attest to that as well. From an ISACA perspective, of course, we have a range of programs and certifications that suit all experiences, all profiles, all backgrounds. Okay, we start at the very beginning, so your foundational and your beginners level through to your intermediate and right through to your advanced certifications. I'll touch on the advanced certifications very briefly, but we have been supplying and we offer the likes of the CISM certification, the CISA, and the C-RISC. These are globally accepted gold standards for cybersecurity, governance, risk, and compliance, as well as audit professionals. So these are reputable programs based on best practices and competencies, and of course, based on knowledge and testing as well, right? So these are well-respected programs. When it comes to services, professionals and veterans, of course, as well, we're looking at a slightly different type of profile. We're not expecting individuals in this demographic to have the required experiences of these certifications. So what an organization like ISACA has done and continue to do is monitor the landscape, is monitor what's happening in the jobs market, speaking to our global network of professionals, which I mentioned earlier on, which spans over 170,000. And we create programs which are more aligned to those individuals who maybe do not have the experience or are maybe coming out of university or perhaps changing their career tracks as well. So in that, we have programs such as the ITCA, which is the Information Technology Certified Associate. And we also have the CET specifically, which is the Certified Emerging Technologies as well. And within these two certifications, we have stackable certificates. And these are certificates which are based on fundamental knowledge and practices around IoT, for example, or artificial intelligence, or cybersecurity, data science, blockchain. These are all some of the certificates that we would have that enable individuals from the services and the veterans communities to be able to start somewhere. Instead of starting with those Mickey Mouse courses that Tom mentioned, at least these are reputable courses created by a global body with good standing, and you can be sure that taking these types of programs will give you the types of knowledge and information that you need to start your progress in your cybersecurity and governance, risk and compliance careers. So to answer the question, there are a range of different programs available in the industry. Of course, there are. My advice would always be to, come to organizations like ISACA, who are there to consult, provide and guide and give individuals the types of information they need so they can make the best start possible for themselves. There are programs there available for every type of profile, as I mentioned, And we'd be more than happy to support them and speak through them in a lot more detail.
Amazing. And I think what I really love from ISACA's perspective, you're more than just certs, right? And I think that's something that ISACA take. You don't just do the course, you don't just take the exam. Actually, there's longevity, there's a pathway, there's a defined program, but you also offer the membership, right? Can you give us kind of just a quick introduction to what the membership does and how that works?
Yeah, I'm more than glad to, Frankie. Yeah, absolutely. So ISACA has mentioned, we are a not-for-profit organization, right? So, ultimately we are built on our membership, and our membership is all about allowing and enabling individuals who, once certified or starting the journey to certification, are able then to benefit from the resources and the tools that we can provide them to continue their journey as they develop their careers in this industry. So a membership for us is really about the advantages that we can provide, the tools, the benefits, the resources, events, conferences, webinars, etc., reading materials, and obviously guidance notes as well, right? So we do a lot of research. We provide a lot of white papers. One of the key elements that we create as well is a report. And in fact, we are going to be making this available to anyone who would like it post this webinar. But the State of Cybersecurity is a report that we create, which looks at the landscape of cyber and information security, what's going on, what are the threats, what are the solutions, what the job market is saying, what the kind of roles are in industry as well. So there's a whole range of benefit that we can provide to members as they join our communities. I should also mention that there's chapters as well that we have all around the world, right? And we can speak on that in a little bit later on if the conversation turns to that. But certainly chapters are available as a really valuable localized network of professionals that individuals can benefit from as well.
Oh, amazing. And I think, Faisal, you touched on a really key area there about networking. Membership, and it's great, and all these chapter events are amazing, but actually how important that networking element is, which is where I want to come over to you, Colin, from a networking perspective and a tech vet's perspective. Where do we go? Where do armed forces personnel, veterans, where do we go? I don't know where to go. How do I get there? Talk to me. Show me the way.
So I'll be blunt, and I'll get my advert in quickly. So Tech Vets is the place to come. It is the leading non-profit community for veterans and service leavers in the UK. So we have around about 6,000 members in our online community, many of whom are working in tech and cyber now. They've sat where you sat, and they want to help people. And that's the way we look at it. We're not experts in the field. The UK Cybersecurity Council say there's 16 subdomains in cyber in the UK. We can't be experts in all of them, but I can put you in touch with the people that are. And that's really how you've got to push that network. LinkedIn is the prime example to use. Follow people, find those ex-military. Do a search for companies, and look for the people that have got RAF, Army, Royal Navy in their profile, and you'll find them and reach out to them, because they say they've all sat in your shoes. Generally, 99.9% of them want to help you move on and make the transition successful. We know it's a difficult time. There's lots and lots of things to consider. You're worried about paying the bills and looking after the family and all that kind of thing. But there's massive success stories out there. As Tom said earlier, he's not from a cyber background, he's not from a technical background, but you don't need to be, because there's so many other options out there. But yet, network like an absolute demon. Get to events. Faisal was saying about the chapter events there's all sorts of things going on all around the country, most nights of the week. Forced Employment Charity run events where we try and get you in front of employers. Yeah, there's tons there. The sky's the limit, but you've got to dip your toe in the water to start with and put yourself out there.
Yeah, brilliant. And actually, it leads nicely with kind of question there from the floor already from Ben H. From a recruitment perspective, and for companies, kind of how long are they looking? What kind of timescales were potential organisations looking to take on new staff? Is it a week, 6 months, 12 months? Because again, I know from a mod's perspective, we try and plan our lives around when we're getting out in the job market. What's the timeframes look like, Colin?
We find very, very dependent on the company. So there is a company we're working with at the moment in London who are putting together a GRC program for novices. They're looking for 12 people to start in June or July. They've run it successfully already for service leavers with CTP. They've got a little bit of expansion this time. So yeah, there's time there moving out. There are, other companies that offer similar. There's other companies that are very, very ad hoc. A company like 6.6, for example, will recruit as needs be. I know certainly when I was leaving the Air Force, it was fairly easy. If you had a job to go to, you brought your letter in and you could be out the next week. And I don't know if it's still like that. Probably not, given the recruiting crisis at the minute. But I think if you apply, lots of companies, especially if they're signed up to the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, they now recognise that there can be that time gap. And if you're using that time gap effectively to upskill and network and do all those other things, if you're the right candidate, that company's going to wait for you.
Yeah, no, really, really, really useful. Thanks, Colin. And I think I just want to come back to Tom now, because another great question has been posed. We've got no experience in cybersecurity. It's a total career change. Could this be a setback? Is this going to prevent us from moving forward? And I really want to lead on to, as Colin mentioned, their networking. Tom, how important is it? I want to start. I'm not too sure where to start.
Networking cannot be understated. I think when I left the army, what was it, 7-8 years ago, I spoke to 180 different people. I mean, you've got to go for it and treat it like a full-time job. And so basically every meeting you have with somebody, seek 2 recommendations to go on to speak to other people. And then logarithmically, you're going to get to a lot of people. But equally, you don't really know what you want when you're leaving the army because you haven't been exposed to stuff. And only through talking to people, you're going to understand. So I'd sort of described it to people as, I was kind of looking with a 360 radar on, and then your arcs of fire narrow in towards particular sectors as you rule stuff out, or you focus on an area because it's really interesting. And you might have 3 sectors that are interesting. But as I was saying in the intro remarks, lean on your sort of generalist ability to get stuff done, to manage people and situations. And yeah, take the training as another brother Colin was saying, there are schemes out there that are itching to get service people into, some run by the military and the resettlement. Others, the good old Forces Covenant is a great scheme out there. If you can identify which firms are Forces Covenant, odds are, you could put in a speculative email for an interview, a chat, and see what comes from it. Have a bit of neck, and plenty of the military cannot be accused of lacking in that front. So, stick your neck out and go for it.
Right. And Faiz, I just want to come to you with the same question as well in terms of networking events that obviously ISACA deliver a part of. What's good? Where should people go? Come into that kind of, I say more into that kind of commercial space, into that commercial world?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely corroborate what colleagues have been saying. Networking is absolutely key in this industry, right? There are so many events that you can go to on a daily basis. Some will be better than others. That's just how it works out, obviously. But again, from an ISACA perspective, we look to our chapters, for example, to provide platforms for localized events. Okay, so our chapters, we have over 220 chapters around the world. In the UK, we have 5 or 6 chapters now. Information, London is our biggest chapter. And these chapters are geared towards ensuring they're producing and providing events and platforms for peer-to-peer exchanges, knowledge exchanges, allowing people to come into their environments and network and meet people and sit and listen to sessions going on and ask questions as well. I'm a great believer in any industry, actually, not just cyber, right? That, you're only going to go as far as the will you have within you, right? So if that means coming to an event and having a coffee and just saying hello to the person next to you, that strikes up a conversation. And honestly, that kind of interest, that kind of initiative, I can't help but encourage anyone that I know to do more of as well. This industry, as mentioned, is technical. There are some technical elements to it. There are technical expectations to it as well. But actually, as mentioned by Colin and by Tom, actually, there are so many soft skills that are required in this industry, and communication is absolutely the leading one. If you are an individual and you are able to communicate clearly, verbally, in person, in writing, via text, etc., that's going to get you a lot further than not doing it at all, right? So never ever doubt the fact that you already have a lot of soft skills given your backgrounds and given your experiences, within the services, that will enable you to progress very, very quickly in this industry. The tech skills, they will come. That's the whole purpose of having fundamental programs and intermediate programs, to allow you to start to understand the fundamental needs of this industry. But those soft skills, I can't speak highly about. And the events, both from chapters as well as the conferences that take place as well, throughout the year as well. These are all useful places for you to go ahead, socialize, with the individuals, both yourselves as well, and then learn about what's happening in the industry and how you could progress in your career development.
Yeah, brilliant, Faz. Yeah, and I everything there is the true word spoken, all right. And I think certainly from my perspective, I cannot advocate how important networking is. LinkedIn is, for me, it's the future, right? It's the digital black book. I used to have the black book of contacts of people that I used to know. Now it's just in a digital format, and it's called LinkedIn. Okay, but I think my advice, certainly something I looked at when I was leaving the forces, I left it probably way too late to do that networking piece, because I was like, well, I'm not getting out for another 2 or 3 months. I'll think about it then. But actually, I needed that 6 months lead time, or maybe even 12 months lead time, to build up my digital contact book, so that when I was ready to get out, I knew the roles, the types of roles. I'd made those names, I'd made those connections already. And I think that was so important to do that. And as far as Tom said, go to the events, because they're wicked, right? You get loads of free stuff, which is always good. You get to learn about the latest and greatest technologies that are going on in the planet, and yeah, you get to meet people, sit down, have a coffee, because you never know. This argument of right time, right place is not true, right? You make the right time when you put yourself in the right place, and it's for you to seize that opportunity, but you have to put yourself there. And I think certainly going to those types of events is so important, and most of them are free. Okay, and I think that's the big one. There's not big costs to these events. A lot of them are free to attend. Colin, I just want to come over to you now, because I've had a few questions kind of posted through. Some are about degrees. Do I need a degree to move into cyber jobs? I'll put my hands up. I don't have a degree, and I'm also not a pen tester either. Kind of put that out there in the cyber world. And kind of what job titles should we be looking for if I want to move into that InfoSec role, Colin?
I think that's a really interesting one. I think most employers now would look for experience over qualification. Certainly the employers we work with, as we've said, they're looking for those soft skills first. If we go back to the old military days, a trained man can. They'll put you on the training you need to do. As for career entry points, pen testing, I certainly don't advocate as a career entry point, no matter what you read in Soldier magazine about certain companies telling you how much you're going to earn next week. But there's plenty of other options there. If you go into governance, risk, compliance roles, you can leverage a lot of the skills you've got already. Basically, all that's going to change is the language around the technical stuff. But if you can look after secure stuff in the military and transfer that into looking after cyber secure stuff in the real world, it's just following procedures, and it's writing procedures, and it's getting people to understand that space. So there's lots and lots of options there. I'm a firm believer that cream rises to the top in any organization. So don't be scared of taking that risk on an entry level job. We've seen some people progress really, really quickly in their companies, and it has not been because of their technical skills. It's been because of what they've brought from the military. I'll use some real world examples. The Royal Marines have got this sussed, and it is that mindset thing. They're just good at what they do, whatever they do. We've seen some people they've gone into some entry level roles, and they've flown. Military spouses as well are seeing that. They're very, very adaptable. We can get in there, get people in at the ground level, and they fly. So yeah, don't be scared, but do your research. Know what the roles are. We always tell people to use the UK Cybersecurity Council website. That's got details of the 16 subspecialisms in there. It's got ideas for the type of training that might go with each role. And there's also a really good career tool on there where you can use it in a way that look at the things you're interested in, and that's going to come back to you with suggestions to roles you might be suited to, which then helps you go to somebody like ISACA and look at their training pathways and think, okay, how am I going to leverage this now? I'd really fancy a career as a SOC analyst. How am I going to get myself in? How am I going to become a threat hunter? How am I going to do the next stage? But yeah, building it all the time. Don't necessarily worry about job titles. Look at the job description and think, yeah, is this for me?
No, and that's great, Colin. And I think what you've leveraged there is so important. That kind of the UK Cybersecurity Council now, for those that aren't aware of it, as kind of the framework and council has been put together by the UK. They have a number of roles. There are many organizations out there, and I think that's important to remember. There's tons of organizations all trying to do the same stuff. The UK Cyber Council, I think, is doing really good job at what they're trying to achieve. I said there are a number of roles there. Look at those roles, look at those descriptions. And I think that's one of the key takeaways, hopefully, that everybody takes from this is working in cyber is a very broad statement. You can't just work in cyber, or you want to work in information security. You have to kind of a little bit be narrow-minded and focused and say, well, which bit do I want to work in? And then once you've chosen that bit, then look at the roles that are applicable to that bit, and then move yourself into those different career pathways and roles to do that. And I think that's so important. Tom, you're nodding there. Anything to add on that?
And then typically we're a mile wide, an inch deep, jack of all trades, master of none. And in Civvy Street, it's the other way around, folks. I'm afraid you're going to have to do some quite serious, yes, as a new joiner, you can be a bit wide, but in time, you're going to have to really dig deep, do loads of research, probably work in your own time, research, be on top of the latest industry developments, what's going on, abreast of the latest course requirements and all the rest of it, and then dig yourself in deep, and no one's going to get you out, particularly in GRC. Oh my word! Well, once you're the master of GRC, you're the most critical person in business. I see there's a line in the chat about, is AI going to get rid of GRC? No, short answer, because you're dealing with people, and people need to be beaten, chased, harassed in order to do stuff they don't want to do. So there's always going to be a role in that. Sergeant majors eat your heart out.
Tom, brilliant. Yeah, and I think it's one of the key areas of discussion, when we talk about technology. AI is not going to go away, is it? It's kind of on the breadth of everything that we do now. It's going to take over the planet at some point in the future, as unknown when. What does it mean to us within the industry? I think it's looking at that technology stack, right? It's like looking at that forward planning, looking at those jobs, looking at those career options to say, is this where I want to be? Now's the time to learn, not that kind of 2 or 3 months when I'm due to get out. Now's the time to really look at your career options. I think certainly from my perspective, my advice is I left, I kind of started looking at my career options probably 6 months before I was due to leave the forces. I should have been doing that 6 years before I was due to leave the forces, right? Because it would have given me much more maturity in what I was trying to do, as opposed to, job ends, start a new job. There's quite a significant transitional period that we definitely look at. So, kind of learning from mistakes along the way. Jordan asked what.
I was just going to jump in there, Frankie. Sorry. If you can, and you have any control over what your next job might be, pick it so it might be aligned with what you want to do when you leave the services. If you've got that ability to do it, then game on. If you want to work closely with industry in a tech role, get yourself to Abbey Wood, and that sort of thing. You've got some control in this game. You're not a leaf blowing in the wind.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly that, Tom. Faisal, a quick question for you. It's just come in the chat there. So from an ISACA's perspective, what are the skills in 2024 from a GRC space? What are we kind of looking at? What are you looking to develop and embed teaching within?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. And I just wanted to touch on actually what Colin and Tom have both said as well. With regards to the skills, I think Colin mentioned it perfectly, actually, in terms of the fact that, when you're looking for these roles, etc., don't look at the actual job title, but certainly look at the job descriptions. Pathways will lead you to roles, will lead you to the kind of skills that you need to have. I've seen the question in the chat as well about the top skills that are required. The cybersecurity report that we produced last year, and again, this is not ISACA saying this is our membership saying this. These are the professionals who work in the industry right now who are making these comments and making it very clear that the top skills, when you look at soft skills, you're looking at communication, you're looking at problem solving, you're looking at critical thinking, attention to detail, decision making, and attitude, leadership qualities. I mean, these are all the types of skills that I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that service personnel and veterans possess in abundance. Again, just to emphasize, once you have these initial skills, the tech skills, in governance, in IT, your basic fundamentals, these are available in the programs that we create. Okay, so these are available in webinar forms. These are available as actual online learning. These are available in classroom-based training as well. So there are programs out there which are more formalized, which will give you certain domains which you will be able to cover, learn from a very early adopter position right through to intermediate and advanced as well. But certainly for me, just to emphasize once again, the leadership skills that are already, well within the capability of service and vets professionals are perfectly suited to this industry.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, definitely. And I've seen that report, and we'll make that available for everybody within the webinar today. We'll send that out as a link for those that don't receive it. We will embed it on our LinkedIn channel as well. So please feel free to download it. Because some really good insights, and especially what Fires was saying. Top skill, I think it was 55% on kind of page 17 of the report. Soft skills, hard skills. That's the bit that employers are hugely looking to achieve right now. So yeah, have a look at that. Definitely, there's some really cool takeaways from that. I've had some questions about apprenticeships and how apprenticeships work in the kind of digital space. And certainly I'm going to look at Colin to kind of maybe answer this from a tech vet's perspective. When we leave the forces, when we leave the military, we want to move into these amazing roles, right? And we want to, we don't want to chase the money, but we might end up chasing the money. Give me a little bit of an expectation. What does it actually look like kind of within that real world space, Colin?
I think that there are some really good apprenticeship style courses going on at the minute. I mentioned Methods in London. They're a cyber consultancy company, and they took on 12 people earlier in the year, and they're really looking at a zero to hero approach, with a training program, with some stuff in their offices, some stuff out on client site, and that kind of hits that question about how we gain experience. That to me, that's the best way of doing it. Somebody's going to pay you to get that experience, and they've done the hard work of recruiting you. They've recruited you because of who they are and what they think they can teach you. So use that. And it might be that little bit in the back of the head that's thinking, okay, I've got to take a pay cut here in the short term. And sometimes it's weighing up that short-term pain for the long-term gain. I did that when I left the military. I went into a teaching career, and I went from sergeant in the Air Force, earning that kind of money, to 16 grand a year while I was training. But if the eye's on the prize and you know what's coming at the end of it, and you cut your cloth accordingly and think, actually, this scheme's worthwhile, what's it going to get me at the end? Now, we work with lots of companies to try and put these kind of schemes together. 6.6 have been really good at it. Google have just taken on some people from one of our events because they see that trainability. And yeah, they might pay you a little bit less than they're paying their top people now, but their aim is to get you. At the end of the day, their business is to make money. They need to be billing you out at good money, so they need you to be good. So they're well worth doing. Some are better than others. And the same when it comes to when you see boot camps advertised, really look at what you're getting for the money, especially if they're trying to relieve you of LCAS. Really think about that. Are those qualifications available for a lot less money? Could you get them in another way? But again, for some people, it works. Some people like that working in a classroom together, that collaborative approach style. So don't discount it, but do your research. And the same with any company. Any company that you want to go and work for, again, do that research, do the networking. You'll 9 times out of 10 in a tech company now find somebody that's ex-military that you can speak to about it. If not, speak to one of us on the panel, and we'll probably know somebody in that company who's ex-military that we can hook you up with. But don't discount anything if you're looking at the career change, but do the research.
No, and I think that's really important, Colin. I think we kind of have this aspiration. We're going to move into this type of role and this type of money. Where actually we might have to start in a kind of more of a junior type role. But if we see that senior level elements, we know that we're going to progress into that. And we got a great question, and we kind of knew the question was probably going to arise about salaries and salary expectations. And I can see Tom nodding his head there. So I'm probably going to come over to Tom. So what advice about salary? What should we do?
Well, I mean, you're worth what you're worth, and you're worth what you can blag from the HR sort of negotiations. But usually, when you're sorry, it's really noisy here. The kids have all kicked off. But you know, the role you're going for will have a financial envelope, and you want to be knocking on the top of that envelope. You don't want to be sailing into everyone's satisfaction, leaving ungot money on the table. And it's not just the salary; it's the package as well. And so we were talking earlier, don't discount, you know, what are they putting into your pension? It won't be anything like what the military have been stashing away into your pension if you're lucky enough to get one. But, you know, that's a factor and a potential lever. There's all the car, you know, travel allowance, you know, bike to work scheme. There's a whole panoply of stuff out there which makes it interesting. And yeah, if you're a junior with very little experience, you're not going to have the ability to lever a telephone number salary out of someone. Sorry. You might land on your feet and you might prove me totally wrong. Well done, you. Thanks. Yeah, well, perhaps we'll meet up and you can buy me a pint. But, you know, if you're coming into the security business, we pay pen testers, junior pen testers, between 30 and 40, and you're going to do some time in that space and you'll work your way up into 10 grand increments. Senior pen testers are knocking 80 through 100. And somebody who was put up for one of our roles was after something considerably more than that. And I thought, not in this firm, you're not. But it depends. It really depends. There's no answer. You know, use Glassdoor, use LinkedIn, network, understand what the expectations are in that industry, in that sector, in that location. You know, you might get work in the Middle East for stunning money, but not much quality of life, and you know, not coming home very often. So you'll find something that works for you in every respect. That'll probably do for now.
No, and brilliant, Tom. And I think it's certainly one of the key areas and one of the I guess, most important messages there. It's not always about chasing the money. You know, if you're always chasing the money and you're never at home to spend it, then potentially that work-life balance really gets impacted. And I think that's really important. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're coming to the end of our kind of webinar today. So a massive thanks to Colin, Faisal and Tom for joining me. Huge inspiration, huge amounts of experience, huge amounts of advice and guidance. A few takeaways from this is ask. And I think that's one of the key areas is just ask anyone. Networking is your lifeline. It is your digital black book. Use LinkedIn to the best of its kind of abilities there. From our perspective, please feel free to connect to us on LinkedIn. You'll find us all over. I'm more than happy to accept friend requests. And I know Colin, Fires and Tom very much within that space as well. All the context for this will be available. And as I said before, we've got some digital handouts and some bits and pieces that will embed within our channel as well on that LinkedIn feed. So you'll be able to download that. We ran a little bit of a competition previously when everybody joined to kind of win some bit mugs and a bit merch and pens and notepads and bits and pieces like that. So we got 3 winners, Carl Williamson, Chris O'Brien and Jordan Adams. Please kind of DM us. Woo, round of applause. DM us on LinkedIn there and we'll get that kind of all sent out to you. And you can take some photos and drink from it and write with it and kind of do whatever you want with it. That's pretty cool stuff. We are going to look to run a series of webinars again, especially within the military context. So if I could ask from a comments perspective, what do you want to see next? You know, we've talked about exploring careers in cyber and InfoSec. What else do you want to know? And it's very much based on what you want to know. I can give you all the things I think you should know, but the reality is what I think you want, it might not be what you actually want. So actually, what do you want? So within the comments there, please pop in suggestions for the next webinar. We'll spin that up. We'll get the panel of industry leaders again. We'll talk about all the different experiences, and we'll be able to answer any kind of questions and concerns you have within that space. It's been an absolute pleasure. Team, thanks very much for joining me. I look forward to catching up with you at some kind of networking event in the future, no doubt. We'll be there. We'll have a drink, teas, coffees, beers, etc. Thanks, everyone. And stay safe. It's been a blast.
Thanks so much, all.